Have you ever felt like someone was watching you when you were completely alone? Have you ever heard whispers in the dead of night when no one else was around? Imagine working the graveyard shift, where the only company you have are dim fluorescent lights, eerie silence, and the shadows that stretch a little too long. Hospitals, warehouses, gas stations, and security jobs, all places where the night shift turns from mundane to terrifying. These are true horror stories told by night shift workers who experience things that defy explanation. Some of them never return to work. Some still live with the fear that whatever they encountered is still lurking, waiting for them in the dark. If you think you can handle it, keep reading. But be warned, after hearing these tales, you might never sleep soundly again. Story 1. The Man in Room 306. I worked as a nurse in a hospital that was already known for its strange occurrences. We joked about ghosts, but deep down everyone knew something was off about the ICU. One night, I was assigned to a patient in room 306, a bed that had been empty for weeks. It was an overflow room used only when the hospital was full, but that night it was unoccupied. Around 2 a.m., the call button from room 306 started buzzing. I thought it was a malfunction, but when I checked the monitor, it clearly showed movement inside the room. Thinking it might be a homeless person or a confused patient, I grabbed a flashlight and went in. As soon as I opened the door, the room was freezing cold. The hair on my arms stood up. My breath fogged up in front of me. But what made my blood run cold was what I saw in the reflection of the window. A man stood next to the empty hospital bed, his head tilted at an unnatural angle, his face pale and expressionless. His mouth opened wider than any human mouth should. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind me. The room filled with whispers, low, guttural whispers in a language I didn't understand. I screamed, pounding on the door, and suddenly the whispers stopped. When I turned back, the man was gone. The door creaked open on its own, and I bolted out. The next morning, security footage showed the door opening and closing by itself. But the worst part? A blurry, shadowy figure stood beside the bed just as I had seen it. No one ever stayed in room 306 again. Story 2. The Elevator That Never Stopped. I worked security at an old office building downtown. My job was simple: monitor the cameras, check the floors, and make sure no one broke in. The building had been around since the early 1900s, and some parts of it were still original, especially the old service elevator in the basement. No one used it anymore, but every night around 3 a.m. it would move on its own. One night, curiosity got the best of me. I went down to the basement to see if the elevator would move while I was watching. Sure enough, right at 3 a.m. the doors slid open. The air inside smelled like mildew and something rotten. The buttons inside were all lit up, as if someone had pressed every single one, and then I heard it. A child's voice. "Going up!" I ran back to my desk, shaking. The security cameras caught the elevator doors closing and the button lights flickering. But the most terrifying part, in the grainy footage just before the doors shut, there was a small figure standing inside. Story 3. The Figure in the Parking Lot. I was a night shift cashier at a 24-hour gas station. It was usually quiet, just a few truckers stopping by, but one night, around 2 a.m., I saw something that haunts me to this day. A man was standing in the parking lot, right outside the station, staring at the store. He was tall, dressed in dark clothing, and he didn't move. At first, I thought he was just waiting for a ride, but after 30 minutes of him standing completely motionless, I started to get uneasy. I looked away for a split second, and when I looked back, he was gone. I went outside, but there were no footprints in the freshly fallen snow. There was no way he could have walked away that fast without leaving tracks. I checked the security footage and my blood ran cold. The cameras showed nothing. No man, no shadow, no movement. Just me staring out into the empty parking lot, terrified of something that wasn't there. Story 4. The Whispering Walls. When I worked as a janitor in an old psychiatric hospital, I always heard strange noises, but the worst experience happened on my last shift. I was cleaning one of the abandoned wings when I started hearing whispers. At first, I thought it was my radio picking up interference, but then I realized the voices were coming from inside the walls. I pressed my ear against the wall, and the whispers turned into screaming. I ran. I didn't stop until I was outside. When I told my supervisor, he paled. That wing used to be the isolation ward. Some patients were walled up alive when the hospital shut down. I quit that night. The night shift holds secrets that daylight will never reveal. These stories are just a few of the terrifying encounters that workers have experienced in the darkness. If you ever find yourself alone at night and you hear a whisper, see a shadow, or feel something watching you, trust your instincts. Because some things in the dark are real. Are you brave enough to work the night shift?